Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this multiplayer battle, I will be piloting the Greenskins, and I'm actually using an Orc Warboss for my leadership. My opponent here will be playing the Beastmen, so definitely a fun matchup. A lot of little monstrous units and fun things like that. So let's get started. As far as my army composition goes, I actually have a core army of goblins. You know, I started off trying these goblin armies mostly as a joke, but at the end of the day, it actually ended up working quite well and being a very cost-effective support unit to these black orcs and monstrous units who are the real power of the army. So I have a front line of goblins here. Behind them, I have a secondary line of black orcs. So these are the shock troops that'll follow up once these goblins take the beating. And then I have a third line of goblins back here who I kind of just use as utility. Again, I feel out the current state of the battle and adapt to the unit's movements of my opponent. So again, that's how I like to use that third line of goblins. I have an Arachnarok Spider who we'll use to overpower one of the flanks. And then I also have a Giant here who is very cool. He's got his Pimp Chain on. He's ready to go. And then as far as my magic goes, I have an Orc Shaman. So it's something else I really like about using the Greenskins is I've actually become a huge fan of these Night Goblin Archers. They have Vanguard deployment, and they also have poison attacks, which is quite good at focusing down big, powerful units. And also, they remain hidden for a very long time. They do have that stealth capacity and are very good in that. So again, I feel like with these stealth Night Goblins, you can get really good positioning with them. And then on the far side, I have, I believe, a group of Goblin Wolf Riders over here, which actually ended up working out really well because they'll be able to take care of those Chaos Warhounds. No problem. So as far as my opponent's army composition goes, he also has some hidden units here. He has 3 groups of Ungor Raiders. He has a Goreherd back here, not the shielded Goreherd, just standard. Then he has Centaurs with great weapons. So again, those will be pretty good. They have armor piercing, so I think that will be decent against Black Orcs and my other monstrous units. In his back line, he has Goreherds with shields. He has a front line of Ungor Spearmen, so they kind of play like goblins in that they are, expendable and, low tier units that are pretty decent. They're shielded and they do have the anti-large capacity, so that is definitely nice. Then he has a group of Goreherds over here. He has a Giant himself, so this Giant definitely looks cool. But they do have the same necklace, so perhaps they're distant cousins. He has a Gorebull here. He has Kazarak the One Eye, and in terms of his lore of magic, he has Bray Shaman over here with the lore of Beast, so he'll probably be summoning a Manticore of something of that sort. So without further ado, let's get started. So again, we're both fairly aggressive factions, so you can see I'm just moving my entire formation forward, and at the same time, I didn't see these yet, so I actually didn't know they were there. I just saw this Goreherd here, so I pull over my Orc Warboss because I wanted him to be close enough to cover these guys in case he tried any funny business here. And at this very moment, I actually discovered his Ungor Raiders here, so I immediately path my Goblin Knight Archers, who I think are slightly superior archers, to go ahead and engage them. I detached a group of goblins from my main force and put it here because I figured I did see a Centaurs here, and these goblins would be a really cost-effective trade against a Centaur. And I also leave the Warboss here because I really didn't want to just give up this entire rank and regiment here. And over on the far eastern side, my Goblin Wolf Riders made short work of those Chaos Warhounds. They got the jump on them, and because again I had the cover of the tree, so he didn't see them. And those Chaos Warhounds are already out of the game. So our front lines here will be collapsing shortly, and again, I feel like I do have a pretty solid front line because the Orc Shaman with the big wall can really cast a lot of augmentation spells that are very strong and can make goblins cost effective. So he engages over here with his Gorebull, and I send some Black Orcs as well as this Giant to engage it. That's going to be pretty good for me. The Giants are pretty good at taking down and just focusing on single targets like that, so I was very happy about that. And again, he's sending Goreherds over, who will still just get crushed by Black Orcs. And our front lines, we engage with goblins, and this is exactly what you want. You want this Giant to just be wasting his time fighting your goblins. And I actually use There We Go. It was actually a misclick. I meant to use it over here on these Black Orcs, but, again, it didn't end up hurting. It helps them get through a little quicker. And over here, we're just exchanging fire, and as you can see, my Night Goblin Archers are winning this battle. They are superior archers, and they're going to do very good here. And he also brings his Centaurs, so I was reforming my Goblin ranks. I was just keeping an eye. And every move he made, I was just trying to mirror it with these goblins. So I did pull my Orc Warboss from the back line and went ahead and engaged him over with their Ragnarok Spider. I really wanted to crumble that front line and, get in there and get down and dirty. And things were going pretty well for me here. And my units were strong, and they were able to outmatch those Ungor Spearmen, especially with the buffs from my Shaman. So things were going well. His Giant, however, was doing really good. He was able to crush my units here, and then his Ungor Spearmen, I think they actually broke. But again, this Giant was doing pretty well at chasing off these goblins. But that's not where you want them. You don't want your Giant. He should have been attacking the Black Orcs most likely. So my opponent here is using his Ungor Raiders very well. He did charge in with those Centaurs, which for a moment distracted my units, but he also brought his Gorble over here. But these goblins are actually going to tie up this Gorble for like half an hour. They're really good at tying him down because there's so many of them. They're so expendable that, again, that's an ideal situation. But his Ungor Raiders were doing a very good job of targeting down my Giant. I was not doing a good job of targeting down his Giant. So I saw what he was doing, and I pulled my Night Goblins over here and began to just tee off on his Giant. And thankfully, my Ragnarok Spider was able to target his Bray Shaman and just really, really put the beat down on him. Over here on this side, I do have my Black Orcs, as well as some Goblins who are fighting his Centaurs that he pulled away, because I think he realized that he couldn't get a good engagement against my Goblins back there, so he decided to just pull and use them in the main line. And then I also have my Orc War Boss. And with this new patch, you can be very aggressive with the Orc War Boss, because with the double potion, they can last forever. So I have him fighting Kazarak, and these Black Orcs are fighting against the Gore Herds over here. So it's a pretty even battle here, and we'll see how it turns out. He does finally summon a Manticore. It was a little late, but perhaps he wanted to open up with some other... I think he was using some other buffs and abilities like that and was waiting on that. But thankfully, these Goblin Knight Archers are poisoning this Giant and taking it down. And I send that Ragnarok over, who's very strong. It has high armor. It's armor piercing also, which is good. I mean, not terribly pertinent against Giants, but it's very strong. So this Giant is definitely going to meet his end here in a moment. And I also pull some auxiliary... some Goblins that I had who had retreated earlier to come help finish him off. And Goblins, they're shielded, and, they can take a beating from a Giant for a while. So he did take out my Giant as well. So now he's got all his Missile Fire focusing on the Ragnarok Spider, which is the wise play. But thankfully, my Night Goblins are back online, and they should easily be able to clear these guys out. But unfortunately for me, this Bray Shaman came in here and threw a wrench at things. But thankfully, these Night Goblins will, hopefully be able to hold for a while. So wasn't too bummed about that. So his Centaurs did take a beating. And Kazarak also did. Kazarak was being focused by the War Boss, and he also took a really brutal magic missile earlier, not that one per se. And then I also pulled a Ragnarok Spider to finish him off. So over here, it went pretty well for me. These Black Orcs, again, are very tough, and they were able to outmatch those Beastmen infantry. He didn't bring Bestigor herds or anything like that, so again, it was kind of hard for him to deal with the Black Orcs. And the Goblins, again, took a lot of the initial shock of his Giants and other powerful units. And if you look back here, these Goblins are still fighting this Gorble, a good 5 minutes later. And they hadn't routed, which was really, really good. So again, at that point, most of his army was broken, and when Kazarak died, it was pretty much over. So again, definitely a good game there. Had a lot of fun using those Goblins, and man, I've really become a huge fan of the Night Goblin Archers. They're just so cool, and that poison effect against those big, powerful Beastmen units seems pretty strong. So again, look at this Goblin group. They actually got 47 kills. I think these were the ones that I accidentally buffed with Here We Go, and they actually ended up doing quite well. But again, the Black Orcs, they had a lot of padding. The Goblins go in and take the initial shock of whatever infantry are coming, and then the Black Orcs just come in and clean up shop. So again, very good. And that War Boss, I mean, look, he's full health. He was fighting Kazarak for a good minute or two and was, still went down to 40%, healed to full with his potions. It's just so powerful. I don't think you can justify getting Grimgore Ironhide, especially considering the War Boss is mobile. It's just so much better. The Giant did okay. My opponent did a really good job focusing him down. But again, the Ragnarok Spider really paid dues and was able to push back lines and kill, valuable targets. His Giant did quite well as well, but then the Night Goblins got to it. His Chaos Warhounds got demolished by my Goblin Wolf Riders, which is pretty funny, but, I was very happy about that. But anyways, good game to Dadokisin X. It was a lot of fun. Look forward to seeing you again on Ladder, and thank you guys for watching. More content coming soon. Take care.